Hi, welcome. This is Inside the Leader's Mind. I am your host, David Susan, and Inside the Leader's Mind, where what's in your way becomes your way. Our guest today is Faith Gavelek. Gavelek? Did I say that right? Gavelek?
Gavelek,
Gavelek?
yes.
Gavelek?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. President of Drama Kids International, a nationwide franchise system that brings developmental drama programs to thousands of children each year. And Drama Kids helps boost kids' confidence and builds essential life skills like public speaking, collaboration, creative problem solving through fun and engaging drama based activities. Faith's journey is a powerful one. She began as a classroom teacher, transitioned into entrepreneurship as a successful franchise owner, and we're going to dig into
Mhm.
that, and now leads the entire national organization. And under her leadership, Drama Kids has continued to grow in impact and innovation. And she's deeply passionate about helping youth development, creative education, and helping others build purpose driven businesses. And awesome, exciting news. She completed her executive MBA, just graduated August. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, on my daughter's birthday. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And further expanding her expertise in leadership and strategy. And she brings a unique blend of heart, hustle, and vision to everything she does. And today she's here to share her story and what she's learned along the way. Welcome, Faith. Great to have you with me today.
Thanks so much, David. I'm excited to be here.
I do have to tell you, I've been so excited to connect with you. I know we started talking like months ago, trying to get
Yeah.
this on the calendar. I just have to share one thing. Part of the reason I was so excited to have you here is, and I shared this with you, but I'm going to share this with our listeners and viewers. My mom was a drama person. She got her master's in theater. I grew up around the theater. All of her friends were theater people. We went to her shows. She was a director. She was an actress. She was a costume designer, very meticulous. She had opportunity to go to Broadway and to go to Hollywood, but life got in the way. And so I'm very passionate, not that I ever wanted to do it, but for that reason. And then the other
Mhm.
reason is I also grew up in a franchise family. So my dad, 3 years before he passed away, bought a franchise. And after he passed, my mom took it over. And at the age of 16, and this is what very few people know, even my close friends, at 16, my mom had been running the franchise business for about 4 years, just winging it. And then 4 years later, she said, I probably should learn what I'm doing. And so she brought my sister and I to California, which is where they were headquartered. And we spent 2 weeks in new owner training. And at 16, I got to learn everything about running a business, from hiring, marketing, advertising, job costing, actually how
Yeah.
to run equipment. Um, and so I was excited to have you because kind of touches on both sides
Yeah.
of my life. So I'm really excited to have you with me today.
Yeah,
So
thanks. Thanks again. Yeah, very excited to be here.
I would love to hear, I'm fascinated in your bio. I want to hear a little bit about your journey and how you got here.
Yeah, it's wild, right? Never expected to be running a national franchise system. Right, as a little girl, I knew I wanted to work with children. I had two aspirations, right? As a child, one was either become a famous actress, right, as one does, right? When you're young, you want to be on stage. Well, at least I did, right? I wanted to
Mm.
either be a singer or an actress or something along those lines, or I wanted to be a teacher and be a mom. Those were my goals as a child. And so I did when I went to college. I actually started out in communications, almost went the TV route, like maybe to be a broadcaster or something like that. But started working at a preschool and realized no, my place is with kids, and I want to make an impact in children's lives. So went the education route, got my degree in early childhood education, which is the like 3 years old to third grade. So I knew I really wanted to work at that very young age when they were just like excited to learn and their brains are just sponges, right? Ready to take on everything. So I did that, worked in a Montessori preschool while I was in high school, and then got my first job as a kindergarten or in college, I'm sorry. And then got my first job as a kindergarten teacher coming out and absolutely loved it. I became the lead teacher my second year.
That's
Wild, right?
awesome.
I was teaching with teachers that had been teaching for 20 years or more and became the lead teacher. Then I decided to take some time off when my son was born. Well, when I wanted to start a family, right? So took some time off when my son was born and raised him. And my intentions were always to go back to the classroom when he went to kindergarten, right? So you're both going to go back to kindergarten together. And what had happened was the education system had really changed so much in those 6 years that I was out of the classroom, and I was starting to see that a little bit even in my first, 5 years of teaching. It wasn't quite what I had learned in college, right? We had learned all of this developmentally appropriate and child-centered education, and then when I got in there, there was so much, even in kindergarten, focus on testing and making sure the kids are prepared for the tests. And I've got 2 little girls. One is fearless, the other struggles with some anxiety, and she's so scared for these tests, and this is what I was seeing in my kids. But then when it was time for me to go back into the education system, all of my friends who I really respected and who loved their jobs discouraged me from coming back because they said, "You're just I know you, and I know you're not gonna enjoy this. This is just not what you love anymore." So, I was very torn on what to do, and in the time with my staying home with my family, I'm one of those people that has to stay busy. I cannot sit idle. So I had multiple, like I was teaching kinder music. So I was working with the littles again and working with like the mommy and me classes. And then I was teaching bar fitness at a yoga studio and teaching classical conversations at my son's homeschool group. So I was doing all the things, and my dad actually, who has since passed, he passed in 2020, but he brought Drama Kids to me. My mom and him both heard this commercial on Fox News Radio, and thought, "This is you. Like, for sure, you need to explore this. This is you." And my first instinct was, I am a teacher. I am not a business owner. You expect me to buy a business and run a company. That's wild. So initially I just ignored it, but my dad was very persistent. So much so that one day he finally printed off like what Drama Kids was looking for for a franchisee. And these are the characteristics and qualities that we're looking for in a person. And he said, just read this. And if this doesn't speak to you and you don't feel that this is describing you, I'll let it go. And I read it, and, of course, he was right, as parents usually are, right? And, so I called and I spoke with Margie, which is our founder's wife, and, started the discovery process, and before I knew it, I was buying a business. And, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously more to my story, but I'll pause there if there's anything that you wanted to
That's
chat about with
amazing.
that,
Well,
but
that what's crazy, I love that you did that. I mean, it's kind of, a lot of times I think a lot of business owners and anyone that's listening or watching that, depending on where they are in their life, maybe they've retired from the corporate and they're like, what am I going to do? The thing about a franchise that we loved and that I'm such an advocate for is it's already proven. Like
exactly,
that's why franchises have such a higher success rate
100%.
going in. So I love that you took the leap of faith. What How did you get to where you are today though? Because
Yeah,
now you're the president, right?
right, right.
I mean,
So
that's amazing. So you own a franchise, but then all of a sudden now you're president of the organization.
yeah, yeah, and I still own that franchise too. But yeah, so I started my journey, right, as an entrepreneur, through the wonderful world of franchising, which I am a firm believer in franchising. It just opens up so many doors for people like myself, right, who never thought that they could own their own business, because it is that proven model. And the biggest mistake I see is when people buy into franchise systems and they don't follow that proven model, right? Like there's a reason why you just invested this money into this franchise. Otherwise, you could have gone and done it yourself if you're going to do your own thing, right?
Right.
So I did. I followed the model, right? And I followed what they set out for me. I leveraged my connections. I'm big on relationships, and I feel like relationships will get you very far in life, right? If you connect with everyone that you meet in your life, you never know where that relationship's going to come back to play one day, right? And so I
True.
leveraged those relationships that I had when I was teaching, and then also in all my little side hustles that I was doing when my son was young, and was able to get into several schools right off the bat. And that's kind of the biggest challenge for our new franchisees is getting into those first locations, right? Finding those schools that will allow them to come in and start their classes, finding those community locations that will allow them to come in because we're a mobile franchise model. So we don't have a brick and mortar. We have a service. We're a service-based industry, so we cover an entire territory. So it's tricky finding those locations, but I leveraged those relationships and was able to be in two schools right off the bat, and I had two community locations. And because I was a part of the homeschool community, I was able to have homeschool classes, preschool classes, and then evening classes. And I opened my doors with over 100 kids, which was very like unheard of, right? Like it just doesn't happen.
Wow.
And it was very quick. Like I did training in November, I opened in January. So I opened in the middle of the school year and opened with over 100 kids. By the time that my 16-week like teaser session was done, because it was just the second half of the year, I had almost 200 students. And then I opened my doors the next year with 337, I think, my like the start of my second fall. So I'm a people person, right? And so I just got out into my community and I made as many connections as I could to continue adding locations and then to be at every event that I could to tell people about Drama Kids, to tell parents about Drama Kids, and then going to even meetings like Chamber of Commerce, right? Most of the people in that room are parents. And what do they want to do at a chamber meeting? They want to help you with your business. That's what everyone is there for, right? They want to help you help your business succeed. So easiest question is, do you have any kids? Great. Where did they go to school? Right. And so I would use that and say, could you make a warm introduction for me with your principal? Because I would love
Smart.
to bring Drama Kids to your school. And
Smart.
so we grew very quickly. And so I found myself, our president at the time, Charlie Kerr, who was wonderful, he would when we would do like our support calls, he would ask me, "Hey, Faith, what are you doing? What's going on?" And as we were going through this discussion, he'd be like, "Man, it's a great idea. Do you mind if I share this with the network? Can I share this document that you made, or can I share this thing, whatever it was, or this great idea that you had and how you got into the school? Can I share this with our owners?" Absolutely. So that happened for a little while until finally they're like, "Well, okay, conference is coming up. Would you mind doing a session at conference about this?" Sure. And here I am. I'm a brand new owner, and people are probably like, "What in the world is this chick doing? Like, she's new." So came in and did a little session at conference. And then at conference, here's another thing I will tell you. At conference, another thing that people fail to do is look for those mentors, right? And to me, you look for who's the most successful person in the room. So I targeted the top two owners and Trisha Foster, Tina Nowak. I don't mind dropping their names because they're still part of our organization. And we are now, they're dear friends of mine. And they were my mentors when I came in and I started this. And I learned so much from them. I picked their brain at every possible moment. And I was determined to be their buddy, right? And just stick next to them and learn from them. Because again, that's the beauty of franchising, right? Is you have
Right.
this entire network of people that are going through the same journey as you and have hit those same bad like struggles that you have, and it can help you through that.
Right.
So I learned from those mentors and then became even more successful through those relationships. And then eventually started working part-time at the corporate office doing franchise support. So I would train new owners. So when we got new owners, I would do the new owner training, and then like very much like what you did, right? I would teach on the business model in the morning. We did morning; it was all business training. In the afternoon, it was all curriculum training. So how to teach our classes. So I ran that training, and then eventually took over franchise development as well. So I was taking new owners through the whole process, right? So I was taking them from that very first discovery call through the entire process, discovery day, signing, and then training them. And then I was their support person. And then eventually my CEO decided he was ready for retirement. And so this was in November of 2019. We were at a conference. He came up to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to meet and chat with you." And I was working, I think, like 25 to 30 hours a week at the office and was VP of Fran Development and Support. And he said, I want to talk about your position and can we meet? And so we met. He lived in Fort Myers. We met halfway at a library, and he said, I'm ready to retire, and I'd like you to take over. I'd like you to step in and be the president." And I thought, like, okay. Um, so yeah.
Wow.
So and if you're following the timeline here, right? So this is now January 2020. Uh, of course, we all know what happened in March of 2020,
Right.
right? So here I
Right.
am, no formal training of how to the only training I've had in business is franchising, right? And
Right.
learning through
Right.
osmosis and my own experience. And here I am now leading this nationwide franchise system. And then COVID hits in March. And when I tell you, I had to learn like I was drinking through a fire hose. I must have been working 18-hour days every day, and thank God my parents were living with me at the time, and could help me with my kids because then the kids are home. No, they're not in school. Kids are home. I'm trying to run a franchise. Thank God I had my mom and dad, right? My kids had me, mom, and granddad to take care of them so I could work 18-hour days and try to keep the company afloat during COVID. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. So a couple questions for you as we go on here. Why why do you think he chose you to run it as opposed to bringing in another business person, someone who's already done it? I mean, granted, you knew how to run a franchise and you were doing
Yeah.
so much contributing, but was there any discussion or that maybe you even asked that question, right?
I think honestly, I think the best leaders are people that have been there and done that, right? It's very hard to give someone advice on something you've never personally done. And you can be very well versed in franchising, you can be very well versed in business, but have no idea how to operate a Drama Kids franchise, right? It's a very niche business, and I think the value that I brought was that I had been through the entire experience that any new owner was going to come in and have to go through, that any of our current owners had to go through. So who better to kind of support and lead and create that strategic growth plan, right, for the future than someone who's already done it? And I can't speak for Doug, but I'm guessing that that had a big part to play in that. I know that's how I hire. I always like to hire from within, if at all possible, right? Because it's better for me at my franchise level if they start as a teacher because they know the system, they know the curriculum, they know the mission and why we're doing what we're doing, and they've got a real heart for that. And then when they've got to go take a phone call from a parent, they can easily answer those questions, right? Or talk about any concerns that they have because they're a teacher. So I think just that experience really sets you apart with that.
Now, and one of the other things you said related to that, and that really struck me, is that you reached out to mentors, but you went to the best people. And the question is, why do you think many people in leadership roles or aspiring leadership even, why do you think I mean, maybe you don't know, but why do you think they don't do that?
Pride.
What do you think the root cause, the reason that they wouldn't do that? Because, you say it, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just go find the best and get
Yeah.
them to mentor you? Why do you think people don't do it?
I think it's pride. I mean, it all boils down to pride, right? Like pride will kill it every day. If the moment you think you have all the answers and that you know everything is the moment you fail, right? You always should be seeking. I'm big on continuing education. Obviously, right here I am in my 40s, going back and getting my MBA, right? To me, you can never stop learning and trying to better yourself. So if you think that you've already got the answers and you don't need to go to other people that have been there and done it before, then you're not gonna be a success. So, yeah.
So what about the people that they know they don't know it and they don't reach out? Any guess why? I mean, I have an opinion on this. I'm curious what yours is.
I think people are afraid of being vulnerable, right? They're afraid of other people knowing that that deep down. I don't have all the answers. I think it takes a very strong person to say that they don't have all the answers, and I think when people have that weakness that they can't admit that they don't know everything, then they're scared to come forward and ask.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And, you know, one of the quotes I have when I work with leaders and I coach leaders is I always say, confidence is not something you gain,
Mm.
it's actually something you lose.
Hmm.
And people say, what do you mean?
That
Well,
makes sense.
a lot of
Yeah.
times, a lot of times we think we gain this confidence. My belief is confidence comes when we lose fear. Because when we lose fear, the fear of rejection, the fear of ego, the fear of being judged, the fear of not knowing,
Hmm.
when we literally lose fear and we can say, look, I don't, I'm okay with it. I'm
Hmm.
okay being wrong. I'm okay. When we lose fear, that's when confidence appears. And if you think about some of the people you know in your life that are the most confident, and I don't mean extroverts, I just mean the most confident. If you
Right.
really think about it, you're like, yeah, you know what? They are fearless. They'll say
Yeah.
and do, not out of ego and not out of, pounding their chest. But I thought about this because I've interviewed thousands of people. And
Hmm.
I think the most confident just have no fear, less
Hmm.
fear. And so what happens is, I believe, to your point, it is they're more fearless, but they come across more confident and they're willing to go up to someone and say, "Hey, Faith, can you help me? Will you
Hmm.
mentor me?" And you know what? Maybe you say no, but so what? At least you took a shot of asking,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I totally agree. I think that's it. What do you think right now, um, from a leadership standpoint? What do you think the biggest challenge that leaders face is in today's, we're recording this 2025. What do you think the biggest challenge leaders face is today? And I know it's
Oh
hard to speak
gosh.
for other people, but just if you kinda look at the big picture of, I know you read, you hear, stuff like that, but what do you think in general the biggest challenge leaders face today is?
Man, I mean, there's so many different angles that I could take with this, honestly, but obviously the hot topic right now is AI, right? Everybody's finding all their answers through ChatGPT, and again, so it's going to be hard to really, as a leader mentor people. And to me, I think a great leader is a great mentor, right? And dictator leadership is not effective in any way. So somebody who just comes in and starts giving these directives without explaining the why behind things doesn't work. So if you're going to be a great leader, you need to be a great mentor. And if people are kind of just seeking AI for all of their answers and not going to leadership and really taking that mentorship seriously from their leader, I think that's going to be a major challenge with kind of navigating, and then just the constant changing within the business world right now too, because of AI is going to be another struggle, just from the opposite angle with AI, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go back to something you said earlier. I mean,
Hmm.
I think part of the reason you also got moved into the leadership role, the president, is the relationship you had.
Hmm.
Because you said you had mentors that were already really successful.
Right.
And I don't answer this question, but to think, well, why weren't they moved into a president role? So part of it is probably how you come across, right? A leader, with drive and motivation, but also the relationship. And with what you're saying about AI, it kind of implies, so there's a question here, that people aren't seeking out answers from
Hmm.
others.
Yeah.
And so now we don't have the relationships
Right.
where someone goes, because at the end of the day, we're human.
Right.
Like as much as people don't think we are, we're human. And we genetically are wired to communicate and have relationships and help
Yeah.
each other and build community together. And I think the more and more people are just getting answers from AI and not building relationship,
Yeah.
I think it hurts their development. Your thoughts on that?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I know, there's so many studies out there now, right, about like how part of the brain is dying because it's not getting used like it should, because we're now relying on AI to write our emails for us and help us with our responses. We just had our not our new owner, our national owner conference uh, last week, and I did a session on AI. So I did a deep dive into the study of AI, and How, because you can't ignore it, right? It's here. So you can't just ignore it. You've got to figure out how to wisely use it in your business, how to not overuse it, but to let it work for you. Basically, like think of it as your personal assistant, right? To help you be more effective. So I did an entire hour and 15-minute session for our owners on just that, right? How to let AI be your personal assistant, save all those admin hours of having to hire that person and let AI be that, but still make sure that you are the boss. You're still the boss of AI, right? AI is just your assistant. You are the boss. You are the one that's getting that final messaging out. Never just copy and paste something that AI tells you to put into a message, right? But so yeah, so it can't be ignored, but it's just got to be used wisely.
And I think there's a really good point here for listeners and leaders. Um, AI is happening,
Yeah,
the train is moving, and you either get on or you're going to be left behind. And I
right.
think a lot of people think if I just put my blinders on, it's going to go away.
Yeah.
I think the reality is I just had another interview this morning and with a gentleman who runs a AI company. And I think the risk is for employees, leaders, owners, executives, if we don't embrace it, you're either on one side of the fence or the other. And what I believe is going to happen is if you're on the side of the fence of I'm not going to partake,
Hmm.
I think those are the first people that potentially may be left behind.
Yeah.
And then we have everyone else. And
Right.
then it's who's really adopting it and who's using it and who's
The right
continuous
way.
learning the
Hmm.
right way. But I
Yeah.
think the first decision that companies are going to make is, are you on board or not? And
Hmm.
if you're not on board, you're going to be falling behind. I think that's a important message from a
Yeah.
leadership standpoint.
Yeah.
What about yourself? What do you think your personal biggest area for growth from a leadership standpoint it would be right now? Biggest challenge, what do you deal with from a leadership standpoint, and biggest area for growth that would help accelerate where you're at?
Oh, that's a great question. So I am one of those people that tends to take on too many things at once. I've got big ideas for everything. I am the innovative brain. So my mind is going a million miles a minute, and I'm thinking of 15 different projects that I want to be working on right now. And fortunately for me, I have a great right hand gal. I actually brought her on from my franchise to, she started as a teacher for me. All she wanted was a couple of hours a week. And then I got her to do a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And then when I got hired, um, as president, she was running my franchise for me, but I decided she was more valuable to me working on the national office team with me here. So she's my director of operations and franchise support manager, but she helps keep me in line. Her name is Dulcie Michigan, and we call each other our work wives because we are your perfect yin and yang of each other, right? Like my strengths are her weaknesses, her strengths are my weaknesses, and we balance each other out. So I'm that big picture person, and I've got all these ideas and all these things that I want to do, but I'm not great at, okay, now let's focus on this one. I probably got a little undiagnosed ADD in there somewhere, right? Because I want to do everything all at once. But I need that. I need Dulcie to say, okay, babe, great ideas. Let's focus on these three. This is our timeline and this is how we're going to do it. And thank God for her, right? But I need to grow probably a little bit myself on managing myself and not relying on Dulcie, because one day, what if Dulcie's not here? Then I'm just going to be back to my 18-hour work days again. But yeah, it's great to have someone who keeps me balanced in that way.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. How about this? What advice would you have? eh, So two-part question. What advice would you have to other people that are already in senior leadership roles? And the second part of it is what advice would you have for aspiring potential leaders?
Okay. All right. So first part, I'm going to go back to relationships again, and I'm going to sound a little bit like a redundant person here, but I feel like it it's that mutual respect. And I talked a little bit about, what kind of a leader is not a great leader, right? But like it's that mutual respect. And as a leader, I think very often people think that they have to like stay here above everyone else, right? And they're not going to have that respect unless they stay here above. And to a certain degree, right? You've got to have a little separation, but I think when people know that you're a person that they can come to with concerns, right? Not every decision you make in the company is going to jive with everyone, right? You've got a lot of personalities and a lot of opinions. You're never going to make everybody happy. But when people feel like they can't come to you and that you're just a closed door, and you're going to make them feel dumb for their opinion, or you're going to just shut them down and say, no, well, this is how it is. We've made this decision. We're moving forward. So get on and move forward with me. When you are that open door that they can come to and you will respectfully listen to them and you show them that respect, then they respect you so much more. And you don't have to agree, right? You're not always going to agree. And at the end of the day, you listen to them and maybe you tweak something, but most likely probably not. And but I find that they're more likely to follow along if you have taken that time to listen to them and really make them feel valued and heard. And that was a big transition for me, right? Coming from franchise owner who had these mentors to then becoming president and then having to, lead these people who I learned from. Like that's wild, right? Like that. So I had to learn very quickly that leadership is about respect and it's mutual respect. And you cannot come in and just sweep through everything and try to make these changes and act like you're better or smarter or more superior than anyone else. So it's that mutual respect for me. Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So then the second question,
Inspiring leaders. Yeah.
yes, an
Aspiring
aspiring
leaders.
leader. I mean, obviously everything I just said, listen to that. But
Yes.
also mentorship. I'll go back to the mentorship. Find somebody that's smarter than you and learn from them. Always look for somebody that's smarter than you and that you can look to as your mentor. That somebody that you could actually. I mean, there's so many great podcasts out there that you can learn from leaders through the podcast world. But find a person that you can actually have dialogue and conversation with to learn from them, that you respect their leadership and the way that they lead others. And for me, that person is my husband. He is an amazing leader. He's a CFO of a roll-up strategy for a private equity company. That's taking over the country right now, right? But he's an amazing leader. He listens to his people. Um, eh, all the things that I just said, right? He is that open door. But at the end of the day, he's much more direct than I am. I'm a little softer. He's very direct. He's from Chicago and he acts like he's from Chicago, right? But he listens and he makes people feel valued and they know that they can come to him. So makes a big difference. So he's my mentor. We actually share an office together. He's not here today, so I'm saying that without him
Love it.
even
Oh,
here
you
next to me.
kicked him out. Well, I love
Yeah.
that. And I think the other takeaway from that, before we get into the last question is being those of you that are hearing this is truly learning to be fearless so that you let go of the ego and
Mhm.
you go ask for help. And I
Yeah.
think it's the biggest thing that holds people back. I probably spend I don't want to say 80% of the time when I coach executives, but the majority of time when I end up coaching someone, it's like, okay, how do I grow my business and how do we do M&A and how do we do this? And it always comes down to people and it almost always comes down to ego. And when we can put away the ego, unbelievable the how much more breakthroughs people have, and learning to be fearless is ego, right? Because it's not, fear is about ego. That's
Yeah.
really what it oftentimes it is. It's like, well, how am I going to look? And I don't want to look stupid and I don't want to. So, yeah, reach out to mentors. It'll change your life. All right,
Yeah.
last question. Uh, when I was a kid, I'd meet my aunts and uncles and they'd ask me questions. And in the back of my mind, there was always this thought of, why don't they ask me this? They don't know anything about me. And so I always like to end my podcast with the question of, what is the question I didn't ask? What is the question we didn't talk about that you wish I had asked you because it would either give insight to you or insight for others, or maybe what would that question be? And then what would the answer be?
Okay. Yeah. So my MBA, we didn't talk much about that, right? So why in my 40s did I decide to go back to school, right? I'm actually about to go to my 25th high school reunion in a couple of weeks. I'm going to share my age a little bit there, I guess, with that. But, after not being in school for 20 years and then going back and studying again, right? That's a massive undertaking, right? So why did I do that? Why would I put myself into that when I already have a very busy schedule, by the way, right? I still own a franchise, so I am still overseeing the operations of that local franchise level, which takes time. I am leading this national franchise system. I am a wife. I am a mother, right, of 3. So, why in the world would I add to my plate? And my husband, trust me, asked me this question and was not sure about whether or not this was a great idea. But he was, of course, ultimately supportive. But why? Why would I spend then my nights and weekends doing school? Why would I go back and get my MBA when I have an executive level position? I don't need this MBA necessarily, but why would I do it? And it's because I wanted the formal education finally to back up everything that I've been doing for the last 5 years, right? So I've been leading this company for 5 years, but again, remember my fire hose that I learned everything in 2020, and everything's just been through experience and osmosis, and I really wanted to have the formal education to back up what I've been doing intuitively, but to learn the why behind it and then even grow more as a leader to actually bring some real strategy into things, through my studies. So I'm so glad I did it. It was a tough year and a half, but best decision I've made, I think, for my career here. And I'm excited. I'm excited for
That is
applying that.
awesome.
Yeah.
That is, and we could go down another rabbit hole even with that, because I'm sure I'll ask one follow-up question. That is, were did it validate what you're already doing, or did it make you realize, oh crap, I'm not doing that, or is it like, yeah, I already know this? What?
Yeah, I would say a mixed bag, right? Maybe like 60-40. Probably like 60% was like, look at me killing life here. Like I knew exactly what to
Love
do
it,
and I've been
love it.
doing
Yeah,
that and I
yeah.
didn't even know that that's what I'm supposed to do, right? But yeah, like 40% of it, I was like, this is pretty cool. Like learning, like just the formal education on like balanced scorecards and putting together KPIs and target, like all of that, as opposed to just, hey guys, here's our goals and let's try to meet this goal, right? But to have like a true, like
Let's pay the
structured
bills.
plan for it, it's like,
Yeah,
man, this helps. This is great. So
that,
yeah, it's been
that is
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is cool. Um, how can people? Let's say people are interested in learning more about Drama Kids.
Mhm.
What would be the best way for them to learn more about it, or to reach you, or what would you
Yeah.
like to tell people?
So if you're a parent interested in Drama Kids for your kids, then go to dramakids.com. We've got locations all over the country. If you are interested in opening a Drama Kids franchise, maybe we don't have a franchise in your area, then you can go to dramakidsfranchise.com and learn about the steps to becoming a franchise owner.
Very good, very good. Well, Faith, thank you so much for being with me. I loved our conversation. I loved having you with me, and I
Yeah.
so appreciate you being on with us today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. This is really, really great conversation. I appreciate you.
All right, folks, I'm David Susan for Inside the Leader's Mind, and thank you for listening.